Drake se presentará oficialmente el 24 de febrero en el juicio de X, después de que uno de los abogados de los 4 acusados afirmara que unos días antes de los trágicos hechos, Jahseh Onfroy subió una story a Instagram diciendo: si pierdo la vida, Drake es el responsable. Aún así, este abogado también ha sacado el tema de que X no trataba muy bien a su novia, por lo que te recuerdo que estamos en el día 4 del juicio. El día 1, la abogada del rapero, llamada Pascal Asheo, detalló toda la historia. El día 2 se publicaron las imágenes de X retirando el dinero y el tío de X contó toda su versión de qué sucedió ese día, en donde acabó llorando. El día 3 tuvimos la enorme confesión de uno de los acusados que entró en la tienda y todo, que sobre esto ya he traducido y comentado toda su testificación. El día 4, hoy, se ha continuado con la testificación por parte de Robert Allen, por lo que hoy te detallaré momentos clave como los siguientes: el por qué Drake está envuelto en todo esto, qué hicieron después con el dinero robado y por qué Robert dijo que su amigo estaba trabajando para el hombre blanco después de confesar todo. Pues eso lo descubrirás ya mismo. Hey, what's up, yo soy Jin de la Trippy y tienes una lista entera de todos los vídeos traducidos, analizados y detallados ya disponible, que te recomiendo muchísimo para comprender todo este caso, y te lo dejaré en el comentario fijado y aquí arriba. No me enrollo mucho más, gracias por todo el apoyo y todo el amor, suscríbete si eres nuevo y vamos para adentro. Ya estamos aquí, vamos a estar comentando primero los detalles acerca de qué hicieron después con el dinero, que justo fue lo último en lo que nos quedamos en el vídeo anterior del juicio que subí justo ayer. Después vamos a estar comentando el tema de por qué trabajaban para un hombre blanco, que eso también ha sido algo como que venía a cuento. Y después el tema del beef de Drake y demás, que es el tema sobre el que todo el mundo está hablando. Vamos para adentro. Ahí está Robert Allen. Ahí están las fotos.
Okay, and the items are the currency that is being held by Michael Boatwright. Recall, okay, that is from this case.
Yes, it is.
Vale, ahí tenemos probablemente una de las testificaciones más importantes. Él acaba de afirmar ya de que ese dinero que está cogiendo en la mano es específicamente del dinero del bolso de X.
You recall if this photograph was taken after you and your co-defendants Robin killed the victim.
Yes.
Justo después. Hay más. Damn, a saber lo que viene después. Por cierto, en este caso también hemos escuchado mucho la palabra recall. Por si la escucháis o algo, recall significa recordar.
No.
I'm showing you what has been entered into evidence. States 3
Vamos con las evidencias.
Who is that in states 3 of 5?
También te digo, tarde o temprano hubieran pillado a esta gente por el simple hecho de que los billetes que ellos se gastaron más tarde en las tiendas de lujo, por si no lo sabes, se empezaron a comprar ropa de lujo, cinturones caros de marcas, pues, de diseñadores. Por los números, cada billete tiene un número, así que si la propia tienda registra ese número o pasa por el contador o por la máquina, más tarde la policía podría revisar eso y concordarlos con los billetes de X, y a partir de ahí traquear la persona que ha hecho esa compra, y con la información de la tienda podrían localizar a esta gente. O sea, sería otra evidencia en caso de que no los hubieran encontrado tan rápidamente.
With $100 bills in his hands fanned out. And
Ese es
you
Dedrick.
recall if this currency that's in Mr. Newsom's hand was taken from the victim in this case after you and your co-defendants robbed and killed.
Yes.
Do you recall, because Mr. Trayvon Newsom, as you said, was living with you, did he have this amount of currency prior to the homicide on June 18, 2018?
No.
And earlier, in a, I believe it was States 3, the video of the car crash, do you recall when you identified Mr. Newsom and Mr. Boatwright in the video, and you also talked and testified extensively about what they were wearing?
Yes.
Do you recall, is this from the same day where Mr. Newsom is wearing, it appears to be the same outfit?
Yes.
Is this from the day of the homicide?
Yes.
Vale, o sea, las imágenes se las tomaron justo después de estrellar el coche. O sea, que no fue el día después, sino que fue el mismo día después de estrellar el coche y ya irse a casa.
How about, and I'm going to show you again, 2 of 5 of States 8, when you talked about Mr. Boatwright's hat and what he was wearing with some fatigue pants and dark colored shirt. Is he appeared to be wearing the same thing that you testified about earlier from States 3?
Yes.
So this photograph of Mr. Boatwright fanning currency from the robbery, is this from the day of the homicide?
Yes.
A saber lo que viene después. A saber lo que viene después.
I'm showing you what's been marked for identification, or excuse me, marked for evidence. It states 4 or 5 from States 8. Who's in that photograph? Okay, and is this from around the time of the homicide, rather?
No.
When is this from? Was it earlier?
Yes.
Okay.
Vale, una imagen antes.
During that 2 to 3 month period?
Yes.
Ok.
I'm showing you 5 of 5 from States 8. Who's in States 8?
Es que yo siempre lo digo, tú haces cosas que no deberías de hacer, sea lo que sea, subirlo a las redes es lo peor que puedes hacer. Y es que fíjate, esta gente tenía su cuenta en privado y aún así, porque lo comenté en el documental de X, si no has visto, chequéatelo porque comenté cosas de estas. Tenía la cuenta en privado y Dedrick acabó subiendo fotos con todo el dinero, al igual que varios de ahí, entonces... Es absurdo, te acaban pillando, te pillan todo, lo primero que revisan son las redes siempre.
5
Michael Boatwright and me.
And it appears that the both of you are both fanning $100 bills in U.S. currency. Is that currency that you and your co-defendant, Michael Boatwright, holding from the $50,000 that you stole from the victim when you killed?
Yes.
And when is this picture, when is it from?
A couple days later.
A couple of days after you killed the victim?
Yes.
Do you remember where this picture was taken?
No.
I'm going to show you what has been pre-marked for identification as states I.
Ahí está mostrando unas imágenes o algo. ¿Cómo que es eso?
Do you recognize states I?
Yes.
How do you recognize states I? And is this the firearm that you testified
Vale, ahí está dentro la pipa.
about earlier that Dietrich Williams had on him during the robbery and homicide?
Yes.
At this time, I move into evidence states I as the next numbered exhibit. I believe the state
Claro, lo tiene en una caja para que nadie la toque ni nada por, ¿cómo se dice? Huellas dactilares y demás, vale.
9.
Don't touch it.
Ok. De acuerdo.
Alright, what was previously marked states I for identification shall be received in evidence as states 9.
Vale, se lo están pasando al juez por lo visto.
Judge, if we could, I don't plan on handing it to him. Could we deal with this potentially at a break? Because I'd like to be able to publish it.
Vale, están hablando sobre la evidencia por lo visto.
Well, how are you going to publish it?
Showing it and projecting it on the projector.
Okay, we're not going to pass it.
So, I can do it the old school way. I was going to say, Judge, I can do it the old school way, do it that way, and then I was going to put it on the projector and ask questions.
Let me just explain to the jury what I'm talking about. So,
Eso te voy a decir, no me estaba enterando de nada, ¿vale? Estaban hablando sobre utilizar, parece ser, la pipa como una evidencia en cierto lado y cierto no. Parece ser que lo va a explicar ahora a la jury, a las personas que están sentadas.
Contained within the box that is now received in evidence is a firearm, and there are 2 pouches in there, one which I believe is a spent cartridge, and there also appear to be some live rounds.
Ese creo que es el revólver 38, si no fallo.
As jurors, anything that becomes in evidence will ultimately, you will have the ability to look at, touch, whatever, go back to the jury room with you. I do not allow firearms and live rounds to be together at the same time. So at some point, I'm going to have those live rounds removed and kept back here. And since they are in evidence, at some point, if you wish to view them, you'll be allowed to come out and view them here in open court, but not at the same time as we have the firearm. I'm sure you all understand why.
Contexto, parece ser que no pueden tener la pipa ahí presente por otras cosas relacionadas con armas, con acusados, pero en caso de que alguna persona del público quiera ir a ver la pipa, puede acercarse más tarde y verla.
But right now for publishing, so instead of handing it to you and having you pass it back and forth, I'll ask
Porque
the
tampoco
state
quieren
to
pasarla, hombre,
display
sería una locura.
on the upper cam that they run, we will remove the live rounds. Thank you.
May I approach as close as I can get?
Vale, ahí la muestran y se la enseñan. Bueno, creo que tampoco hay mucho que ver, al fin y al cabo, pues si él mismo lo ha testificado, él mismo ya ha dicho, sí, hemos sido nosotros y ya está.
Okay, Mr. Allen, I'm showing you what is entered into evidence as states 8, 9. Okay. You have identified this as the firearm that Mr. Williams had in his possession the day of the homicide. What about the gun? Was when you were testifying earlier about the firearm, you indicated that it was ornate. Can you point out to us what you were referring to in the picture? Or what you can see projected on your screen?
Gold trigger.
I can't hear you, remember, we gotta speak up nice and loud.
Eso también, tío, buah, qué rabia, tío, no, nunca te enteras de lo que dice.
The gold trigger.
Okay.
Es verdad, el gatillo lo comentamos también en el vídeo anterior, el gatillo es dorado, por lo que es muy llamativa.
What, if anything, do you recall Mr. Williams indicated that he was supposed to do with his firearm that day?
You never said.
Okay. My co-counsel is helping me zoom it in. Is that the gold trigger there in the center of the
Yes.
in the center of the screen?
Yes.
Okay. And what caliber is this firearm?
It's 38.
And the type of firearm that it is, you indicated, I believe you indicated it was a revolver,
Yes.
correct?
Pues esta es la primera parte, tenemos ya justo el siguiente vídeo aquí, por qué trabaja para un hombre blanco, que también fue algo sobre lo que mucha gente se preguntó qué tiene que ver esto, ya que entre comillas Robert ahora se peleará con el hombre que también participó en el asesinato, su compañero mejor dicho.
Currently part of the transport team that is responsible for an inmate by the name of Robert Allen.
Vale, parece ser que es también un federal que transporta a personas, por lo visto.
Also been listed as a state witness in the case of
También es considerado como witness, un testigo.
State of Florida versus 3 co-defendants for the homicide of Jahseh Onfroy.
Yes, I've been assigned with the transport of Mr. Robert Allen.
Have you been with Mr. Allen since, I believe it was Monday, as part of his transport team to assist in getting him here for trial?
Yes.
Okay. Is there an incident that happened today on February 9th that you alerted the state attorney's office to regarding some comments, threats, or however intimidation that was made by one of the co-defendants directed specifically at Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Who was the co-defendant or co-defendants that was
Ojo,
involved in this incident?
Ojo.
The co-defendant that we can identify as Mr. Newsom.
Okay. And what is it that, tell us what it is that you notified the state with. What happened?
As directed by Your Honor, Mr. Robert Allen was supposed to come up here first. But as the procedures and normal operations of the jails, they usually pull the court docket kind of early, so unfortunately the defendants were in the holding area before we could come up here.
And if I just may, when you say defendants, who were the defendants that were in the holding area?
The only one I know of now is Mr. Newsom.
Okay. So he was in the holding area, and then what happened next?
We notified the Braves that we're coming up with the high profile so they can secure it, lock everybody down. They put these drapes on the windows, try to clear the hallway. As we're making our way over here, what we can hear is Mr. Newsom yell out, there he is working with the police, he's the popo.
Ah, no way. Es que en general todos los tíos que participaron en esto, o sea, los acusados son unos, madre mía, unos personajes. Básicamente, por si no entendéis lo que acaba de suceder, es que Newsom, uno de los acusados, le ha dicho a Robert que es un chivato y que está trabajando con la policía. Lo ha llamado chivato por colaborar. Bueno, en el vídeo anterior creo que está claro de que se chiva de pie a la letra, es que se chiva de todo, cuenta todo lo que ha sucedido. Así considero que con el tiempo hubieran sacado la historia sí o sí. Iban a ser declarados sí o sí, iban a pasar tiempo detrás de rejas sí o sí.
Also said you're working with the white man now.
De ahí lo del hombre blanco.
Now, when you say we, you actually heard the comments coming from Mr. Newsom directed at Mr. Allen?
As I was escorting him over here to court.
Okay. And as Mr. Allen was walking, from as far as you could tell, was there anything obstructing Mr. Allen from being able to hear? Like, he didn't have anything on his ears or anything like that? Was he?
No.
How close was Mr. Allen standing to you?
Closer than you and I.
Okay. And right now, how many feet would you say we are apart from?
Anywhere from 3.5.
Okay, and he was closer than 3.5 feet?
Yes, ma'am.
Were there any other witnesses to this besides yourself and Mr. Allen?
He was yelling it loud enough so anyone in the hall could hear him.
And when
O
you
sea
say
que lo estaba gritando y otras personas también lo han podido escuchar. Madre
you're
mía.
referring to
Va de
Mr.
mal en
Newsom.
peor.
Correct.
Okay. How long did this tirade of comments and explicatives or whatever go towards Mr. Allen?
Time-wise, I cannot actually say. We can say if it was anywhere between 30 seconds to a minute, or however long it took us to turn the corner and walk past this house.
Did Mr. Allen, prior to, during, or after, say anything with respect to that?
Nope.
So, from what you could see, was there any provocation by Mr. Allen towards Mr. Newsom regarding before this incident occurred?
No, ma'am.
And how did it stop?
Once we were out of view.
So basically, Mr. Newsom continued to do it until he couldn't see Mr. Allen anymore, from your perspective?
From my perspective, yes.
No further questions.
Es que estos tíos son unos personajes. Se ponen en el pasillo, se pone el tío en el pasillo a decirle chivato, chivato. Me da mucha pena porque por estos retrasados hemos perdido a una estrella. Por unos retrasados.
Now you said you were in the process of putting up curtains.
No, I did not.
Or what?
I did not put out curtains. No,
No, but you said it was, guys were in the process of doing that when he
No.
walked by?
No, the way you're saying it is incorrect.
Explain to me what you were telling us about.
The curtains were already up
Okay, so
before we got down there.
That's
As
so that-
we're walking down the hallway, as if I'm walking to you, that's where Newsom's cell was. He
okay.
starts saying
Right,
his
you don't have to
comments.
approach me, sir.
No, so we can get...
Le dice el tío, no te me acerques. Y se lo está justo mostrando.
You know,
That's okay. I would appreciate it if you
and
don't
then once
approach
we
me.
walk through here, that's when everything stopped.
Tiene que reírse hasta el tío. Le dice, no te me acerques. Como si fuera... Madre mía. Vaya caso, tío, vaya caso.
Okay, so you're saying Newsom could see him
Through the cracks, yes, of the doors.
through the cracks. And
But they're not very solid.
Okay, so how do you know Mr. Newsom is the person that made these statements? How many people were in that holding cell?
He was in the holding cell by himself.
There was only one. Okay. And how do you know?
Por si no lo sabéis, este tío está intentando defender a uno de los acusados. Ella defiende a X, va el lado de X, y esta gente, la izquierda, el de aquí y el otro son los abogados de los acusados. Y ellos están intentando defender eso. Es que ¿qué vas a defender si el tío también ha dicho que era el único que estaba en el pasillo junto con él y Robert? Si no hay nadie más, que no, los chillos no van a salir del techo.
Mr. Newsom has a pair of tan shoes. He was assigned to that cell this morning, so we can verify that.
You saw the tan shoes, is what you're saying?
Yeah, there's a space.
Okay, so you saw tan shoes behind the wall, and you believe Mr. Newsom was there.
Yeah, we can verify that by calling down there and
Is
getting
this an
verified.
area that was recorded
Me
and
imagino que también habrán cámaras por los pasillos, ¿no?
videotaped where this occurs?
There is possibly videotape, but not audio.
Okay.
Pero no hay audio.
And what exactly did you hear said?
Can you turn this way a little bit?
Sure.
Le han dicho que se
I
eche
heard
para
him
atrás.
say, "There he is working for the police. You're the po-po. You're working for the white man now."
And you believe that was directed towards the witness?
Of
Mr.
course,
Allen?
yes.
Did Mr. Allen react in any way to
No.
what you said you heard?
No.
Didn't say anything to you?
Nope.
You didn't say anything to him about it?
To Mr. Allen?
Yes.
No. I didn't want to upset him.
Now, when you were being escorted
Se continúa.
into the courtroom, outside the presence of the jurors, being brought in and placed.
Ah, claro, él ahora va a ahora viene lo importante. ¿Qué va a hacer? ¿Confesar de que su compañero, su amigo, le ha dicho esas cosas o no va a decirlo? Yo creo que sí se va a chivar, lo va a decir.
On the stand.
Si ya lo ha dicho
After
todo.
you started testifying.
Si ya está colaborando.
Were there any comments made to you that were not coming from myself or any attorneys?
Yes.
Se chiva.
Who made a comment to you about your testimony?
Trayvon Newsom.
Point them out and identify them in the courtroom as to who you're referring to that made some comments to you.
Second. Yeah, the blue suit.
Okay, there's two people wearing a blue suit. What race is he?
Black.
And is he seated on the end, middle?
In the middle.
Okay. And who's that you're pointing out to?
Trayvon Newsom.
Your Honor, please let the court identify any court identification of Trayvon Newsom in this case for this matter. Okay. So Trayvon Newsom made a comment to you after you started testifying.
Claro, esos son todos los abogados y el equipo de los acusados. Vaya cara de tontos se le van a quedar. Es que soy más tontos.
What was the comment that Trayvon Newsom made to you after you started testifying in this case?
He called me a police and said that I work for the white man.
What did you take that to mean when he's saying that to you?
Porque un chivato.
Don't snitch.
No te chives.
And when you say that you took it as you're a snitch, how did you understand that to mean in terms of any impact that it would have on you as you're testifying still in this case?
Maybe it's a threat.
Did you take it that way?
A little bit.
Como una amenaza, él se lo ha tomado como una amenaza, claro.
No further questions.
Bueno, después de esto pasamos a lo más importante y por lo que más habéis estado preguntando, el caso de Drake. Nuevamente, abogado del lado de los acusados.
Okay? And what happened in this case is that they did that. They wanted to solve the case, resolve the case, close the case so quickly that they refused to listen to any other evidence that they...
Él está diciendo de que básicamente quieren cerrar, por eso Robert Allen ha estado confesando, quieren cerrar este caso lo más antes posible para meterse en menos problemas. Él diciendo de que lo más seguro es que hayan sido contratados por terceros. Drake.
didn't comport with what they wanted, what they believed, or what they wanted their narrative to be. The evidence will show.
That's argumentative.
Got it.
Es que este caso es un chiste, tío. La falta de seriedad, lo repito una vez más, hemos perdido un artista y este tío se está descojonando con tal de sacar la teoría. Si es verdad o no, lo descubriremos en unos días, exactamente el 24 de febrero, si Drake está envuelto o no.
The evidence will show.
Con evidencias.
So listen, you're gonna hear from Detective Curcio, and I'm gonna you know, cross-examine him, and I'm gonna get a lot of things out. But for instance, when they around 2021, the evidence will show that Tenell Carter, Diedrich's ex-girlfriend, came forward and said, "Hey, I want to make sure that you guys know that Diedrich wasn't driving. That now she basically was altering her statement." And you would say to yourself, "Wow, that's big, right? That's a big thing, because this is a very important case. This is, as you can imagine, one of Broward County's more important cases, simply because it involves a celebrity, which it shouldn't be, but it is. Okay, and you have one of their main witnesses, one of the witnesses that they're relying on to put him in the car, that they're relying on to put him behind the wheel. She comes forward, and the testimony will show, and the evidence will show that they didn't do anything. They didn't bring her in to re-interview her, to talk to her, nothing, because it didn't comport with the narrative that they wanted to pursue.
Él está diciendo de que la narrativa no tiene sentido como tal ha dicho la abogada de X. Pues bueno, yo diría que la narrativa por parte del lado de la abogada de X es bastante legible. Entonces, decir que algo tiene que ver con la novia de Diedrich y tal, de que solo lo va a decir ahora, lo han hecho con un motivo, porque había una persona por encima de ellos diciéndole lo que tienen que hacer. No sé, tío, me parece un poco raro.
Okay. In the same breath, before X, he said, "If anybody me, it's Drake." And do you think that for one moment, here today, days after the event, he's like two masked men, right? He came on social media and said, "Guys, before he does, if anybody me, it's Drake." Do you think in that time span that they went and they addressed him, they talked to him? No. Do you think sitting here today, years later, any detective has ever asked, you know, Drake or anybody like that? No, they never did that. So you ask yourself, how could that be? If any of us is involved in, you know, God forbid, in a murder, and you say, "Hey, it's so-and-so," you better believe so-and-so is going to get investigated. But in this case, they didn't do it.
Eso es verdad, tengo que hacer un pequeño hincapié en esto. Drake y X habían tenido mucho atrás su beef. Respecto al tema del robo de Look At Me, la base y demás, que sobre eso ya he hecho un vídeo entero que si no lo has visto también te lo recomiendo para comprender todo esto mejor, porque es muy importante. Eso sí, después X, entre comillas, no recibimos palabras de vuelta de Drake. X hizo el challenge de devolverle al mundo. Entonces en Florida él empezó a regalar, pondré unas imágenes, unos vídeos, regalar plays, iba dando charlas, estaba dando como un buen mensaje. Y justo Drake sacó God's Plan, que habréis visto que también hace exactamente lo mismo, regala cosas y tal. Entonces a mí también me parece un poco raro de que Drake hizo ese challenge justo en Florida, lugar en donde X se crió y X hizo ese challenge. ¿Por qué Drake no hizo eso en Canadá o Toronto? ¿Sabes? En plan, eso es un pelín raro, sinceramente. Entonces a partir de ahí subió ya la story al Instagram X un poco antes de los sucesos, y si es verdad es como, ¿por qué subió esa story? Es muy raro. Pero él tampoco habló mucho acerca de ello. Entonces sí es verdad de que es muy raro, pero a ver qué tiene que decir el abogado.
It didn't comport with their version and their narrative. And as law enforcement, I think that they have the obligation to do so. Another issue. The evidence will show that before Mr. Onfroy was, there was an individual by the name of Antonio King, aka 600 Breezy, that posted on YouTube saying, "When I get off of probation, I'm going."
Están metiendo lo de 600 Breezy, que también lo comenté en el vídeo de Drake contra X. Drake y X tuvieron beef por stories de IG. Básicamente estaban diciendo, oye, 600 Breezy me estaba defendiendo a Drake, se estaban después llevando guay, no sé qué, subieron unas stories incluso juntos, 600 Breezy estando con Drake, mostrando como el buen rollo y tal, y 600 Breezy empezó a decirle a X de que empezó a amenazar mejor dicho, y X ya subió unas stories diciendo, oye, si tienes algún problema tírame por MD y nos vemos y lo arreglamos antes de subir las cosas a redes. Él dijo de que si eres un tío de la calle, ¿verdad? No me tires por redes.
Like I was saying, this individual, Antonio King, 600 Breezy, literally
Y se llama Antonio King.
came here to Florida and took videos by Mr. Onfroy's house, threatening him.
Y subió vídeos delante de la casa de X.
Okay? Fast forward, he's by two masked men. Do you think BSO ever investigated this? Do you think anyone in Broward County ever, went to ask him any questions? To this day, years later, that's never happened. So ask yourself why? Why would they not investigate it? Because it doesn't comport to the narrative that they want. And that's going to be a motif in this case. You're going to see that it's consistently the same issue. It's not what they want to hear, it's not what they want to hear, so they don't investigate it. And they have an obligation to...
Él está diciendo de que es exactamente lo que no queremos escuchar. Es más fácil aceptar la otra versión que indagar en la otra. Sinceramente, si queréis conocer mi punto de vista, es que yo dudo de que Drake tenga algo que ver. Aún así, es muy raro todo el tema de Drake y demás. Aún así, yo considero de que no tiene nada que ver, ya que esta gente tenía intenciones de hacer algo malo. Aún así, lo dicho, el 24 de febrero descubriremos exactamente lo de Drake y lo veremos a él en la corte. Por lo que si quieres comprender esto más en detalle, aquí tienes los vídeos en los que he explicado ya todo.